Hi, I'm Sim.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
And we're Wizard Core, a duo of friends that like to talk about movies, television, tech, and a plethora of other nerdy shit. Today's topic, war.
I remember hearing the detonation.
I see three little silhouettes on the rooftop.
We get kind of rumblings like there's going to be something big, like something big is happening.
Fallujah was a life lesson that I have been spending the past 20 years digesting and trying to understand.
And that's the intro.
Yeah, yeah, that's the intro.
We got it.
Yeah. So today we'll be talking about two movies. We're doing a double feature, essentially.
Well, one's a documentary,
Yeah,
and the other one's a movie.
yeah. We'll be talking about Warfare and Warfigs. Dude, Warfigs, dude?
That's
No, War Pigs.
It's Fig Newtons.
Yeah. Because
Snackaliciousness.
we serendipitously wound up watching the Black Rifle Coffee.
By complete happenstance, I stopped
Yeah.
by the gas station and got that before I realized what we were talking about. You told me earlier, and I completely skimmed my brain until right now. It's
Yeah.
Mother's Day
Yeah.
on the day of recording.
Yes,
So
yes, it's the evening of Mother's Day,
there's
2025.
been, of May the
11th?
11th?
We'll figure it out. But yeah, it's Mother's Day.
It's 11th. He was right.
So we are,
So at the end of the day,
if you could,
obviously.
yeah.
So
But yeah, a couple days ago we
that was a long-winded explanation
Yeah.
as to why I have a Black Rifle coffee
yeah,
in amongst it. This was complete accidental advertisement.
yeah, yeah,
I promise.
yeah. But not sponsored.
And Topo Chico, sponsored.
And Geek Bar sponsored.
Sponsored. Sponsor us, Geek Bar.
Yeah.
I'll take
Well-
Geek
well-
Bar before Black Rifle Coffee, to be
Oh,
honest.
yeah,
Since they've
same,
been ripping
same.
Geek Bars on this podcast since day one.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, so we watched Warfare, directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza.
Yeah, who's an actual Iraq vet. The movie's based on a situation, a firefight that he was in, and that it was made for his buddy Elliot, who was the sniper in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made by the people that were there on the ground and stuff. So that's a very interesting take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole movie basically takes place in mostly a single house and
Yeah.
somewhat of the surrounding neighborhood, but mainly just in the house.
Very A24 war movie.
Yeah, and it is. We'll just skip to this part. It's a 10 out of 10.
It's 10 out of 10.
It's
11 out of 10 possibly.
Yeah.
I think
it's up there with Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I said afterwards, I think, well, for at least the GWAT generation, there's stuff like, well, Black Hawk Down wasn't GWAT. That was the 90s. That was
No, that was
Somalia.
Yeah.
There's, within the GWAT generation, which is the Global War on Terror,
Yeah.
I've realized there's, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Generation of films and stuff. I think this is probably the best one, or at least the most important one of
I think important's the word.
not really having. It doesn't skimp out on the bad shit. I mean, most don't, but they have what I described a purpose to the whole thing. There's always heroes and villains and stuff, and this is really just drops you in as a fly on the wall in a situation, good, bad, or indifferent to how people feel or how you feel about what's going on and what they went through, and kind of just they don't skimp out of some of the kind of fucked up shit that they did.
No, not at all.
Sending out the
interpreter.
Yeah, the Iraqi dudes first and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but on top of that, just kind of the chaos of being in that situation. Really, it's I think, closer to most of those other movies where they kind of, it feels the least dramatized. For sure.
That's actually what I really thought was, that is probably the part about it that makes it a legitimate 10 out of 10, is it's so weirdly, in the best way, unfiltered. Mm-hmm. Like it, because there's no
raw, uncut.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of raw and cut, they were doing dip and shit in that movie a lot.
Oh yeah,
in the beginning specifically.
Yeah, dip. Well, he even says when they switch the sniper position, she's like, "I'm out of dip."
Yeah,
I got it. Which that's very.
Yeah, but
I'm more of a chew guy. Back when I did that, I think it tastes like raisins. I had a guy tell me one time, he's just like, pour some Nestle quick mix in it and like shake it up and then chew it. And yeah, no, I mean that's just random stuff.
Yeah,
things you learn.
Yeah, but I don't know if we've ever actually said this on the podcast, but you're a veteran and whatnot.
Yeah,
and so this movie takes place in 2006, right?
Yeah,
and you were in from
15 to 21.
Yeah, so you and the people you were in with, you guys dealt with the stuff that happened like 10, almost 15 years later.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's very much like it's incredibly similar.
The GWAT lasted from 01 to 21. It was like 20. It was a 20-year war on terror.
Yeah, so you came in and like literally
the half end, the back end.
Yeah, so lots of similarities in regards to like
feeling,
the setting, the feeling.
Different things.
Just a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Which was actually really great watching that with you, because like there were certain things that you were pointing out like as we were watching it that like added to like my viewing experience, because like I'm not a veteran, I'm just a civilian, and I'm like not as familiar with all that stuff. But you don't need to like know that stuff for the movie to be good, but having you there with me watching it was very
I personally liked that they kind of just dropped you into it without, they don't explain any of the jargon or stuff like that. It feels
that was awesome
very
about it, actually.
Real and just like, again, raw, uncut.
Raw.
Blacked raw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very much this movie.
Yeah, for real. But it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of a hard movie to talk about, just in the sense like there isn't a lot that like, there is a lot that happens, but the story, there's no like, there's no main characters. It's very much about the group of guys, and you don't get to know like them so much as like their backstories and whatnot. It's much more about like what they are doing and how they are during this really fucking shitty thing that happened to all of them. And
oh no, I was just gonna say that I lost it. Go.
Well, I was just looking into like, I mean, you and I both were watching like featurettes and stuff like that about like the movie and whatnot. And I think that
speaking of the featurettes, it was I think it was one of the like Tonight date, whatever.
There was like a talk show.
Talk show
news
guy talking,
mix,
and they were talking to the real dudes, Ray Mendoza and the guy and Elliot. I forgot. I don't remember his last name.
I don't think they ever say it.
Yeah,
maybe they did. They don't say it in the movie. That's for sure.
And he said there's a lot of valor in this movie, but there's not a lot of glory. And I think that's the best tagline you could like give this scenario of these dudes and what they like went through and did. But also just how I already used the word like chaos and chaotic. When they get hit with like the IED, it's like there's the obvious thing with the IED is it tears people apart, but like the people that weren't necessarily like next to it still suffered like concussions and the brain, the like
injuries, like severe
internal injuries that last throughout the whole movie, which is another thing I don't think a lot of other war movies do or did as much, is like
show that.
Yeah, just like the decision making, and I think it really harkens in with like Ray and the oh man, I can't think of the eyebrows. The eyebrows.
Yeah, the
Will
guy that
Poulter's,
plays
the team officer, the captain.
yeah, he's the guy from Guardians 3.
Yeah,
whatever
and
that character.
Where the Millers.
Yeah, yes,
Gets bitten on the ball sack.
Yeah,
by the spider.
Yeah. He's fantastic in this movie.
Oh, I think he should be. I
think he should.
said
Yeah.
he should be nominated for something. Between this and Sinners, I think these two, for me, are at least in the running for like Best Picture or something at the end.
I was actually thinking about that before you got over here. I was thinking about both those movies, and I honestly think this movie. So I think this movie should win Best Picture, and it's kind of for the reason. As much as I love Sinners, don't get me wrong, Sinners is also a 10 out of 10. But I think if I had to choose, it would be Warfare, simply because we already kind of said it. But I remember when you and I, a couple months ago, watched I watched with you. I watched Saving Private Ryan for the first time and was blown away by how fucking amazing that movie is. And one of the things that I was talking about with you was that how important that movie felt in representing what the soldiers went through during that time. And this is that, but for like this generation of military members and whatnot. And because it's a much simpler movie than like Saving Private Ryan or even Sinners, because it's literally just about guys that
it's like even Saving Private Ryan
stuck in a house.
had like a mission of like crossing stuff, and they hit different scenarios. This is one scenario in a house that goes wrong. And it's like it captures the boredom at the first 30 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie, where it's just like nothing's going on. You just kind of sit around doing nothing, and then next thing you know, shit just hits the fan in an instant, and then everything can just go fucking haywire. Yeah,
I really liked this. So it's interesting what they did, where the boredom turns into tension. And like pretty high tension, so subtly
and smooth, and how they're like noticing more dudes gather up, and then kind of like start peeking at them, and then like then when they pull the PKM in out of the back of the I forgot if it was a Helix or something, or I think that he said in the movie the Helix left, the HILUX, which is the like usual like truck that they use that they put like the fucking PKMs in and shit. And then something else pulled up, and then they're like pulling it out the back and stuff like that. And then it's like you can feel it like ramp up, definitely.
And it ramps up like so. There's a lot of shots in the first 15 minutes of you're getting the POV of the sniper looking through the scope. And it was so like brilliantly directed because from the guys that like were viewing like the terrorists essentially, or like the local people that are like fighting against the Americans being there. There was such a subtle like shift in what they were doing and how because you're locked into the perspective of what he's looking at through the scope. You're only getting to see what he's seeing, and he's specifically looking to see if there's any like weird activity. And slowly over the course of that 15 minutes before like shit hits the fan, you slowly started to see like more activity and them being like subtle about it. And except for the guy that's literally holding like a fucking machine gun in the middle of the road. But that was kind of like that was the first like uptick in like stress. It's like, okay, that guy is clearly it became known to like them and the audience pretty early on that like they knew they were in this house and that they were preparing to come into this house, but they didn't know when. And that's what they were specifically looking for. And they saw, the guy on the roof that was like, he's like, what was this? Like, is he pushing, or what was the word the lingo he used? You
asked me too quick. Something or probing.
Peeking or probing.
Peeking or probing.
Yeah, they kept like using
peeking with intention to probe.
Yeah. And
all that, jargon and stuff.
Yeah. But what was really great, like intercut with that, was like how you're cutting back between like observing what they're doing off in the distance, and you're cutting back into what the soldiers in the house are doing, and they're basically just doing protocol. They're and along with just like waiting around and being bored, and you're cutting back and forth between that the entire time, and through that you're getting to know in very subtle ways like who they are as people and the hierarchy structure of like what their role is in this, and it's all done just through like how they're talking to one another and the information they're giving one another. Like it's just. And all that stuff was set up so perfectly, and
Real quick,
got it.
Before anybody says anything, we know there's SEALs and there was 2 Marines. We'd say soldier. It's a general term.
Yeah.
I don't want anything, some bullshit. They're like, Marines aren't soldiers. Marines are Marines. And, these SEALs, they're the Navy. And if you want, we can just call them seamen. That's fine, too.
Yeah.
We're just broad terms.
Yeah, yes.
I'm aware.
They're people from the United States military. They're on a mission.
Yeah, we're just really going to say soldiers from here on out because it's easier.
It's just easier, yeah. Anyways, but it was just so brilliantly done. And then the second that grenade gets tossed through the hole they made, shit just gets wild in this movie. Like from that point on, I mean, they're still building and everything in regards to like what is happening, but like. Dude, when they just like tossed it in, I literally was like, "Where the fuck did that come from?"
Yeah,
like they just fucking snuck up there and just
boom, and then they toss it in and it goes off, and that mainly that's when Elliot first kind of like takes a hit and he's like bleeding. That's when they kind of all get. It was rattled. Elliot
and the other dude. Yeah, they were really close to it when it went off. And really from there, it literally the entire movie from that moment is about them trying to get the fuck out of this house.
Yeah.
And at first it seems like, okay, like we're gonna get out, and they go through a lot of they grab all their shit. Yeah. And that was a really good thing too. They knew they needed to get the hell out of there, but they were like, we can't leave our stuff behind. We have to like make sure all our guys are good and like get them out and stuff like that. And sorry, were you gonna say something? Did I interrupt you?
No.
Oh. What?
If you know, you know. But yeah, continue.
Okay. I'll see it on the playback. Did I say something?
No. Okay. Continue.
Anyway, it was really great to see like how much of a team they were, even in this in this scenario where they're needing to get out of this house, and how they almost do get out in like the very beginning, but then the IED goes off.
Yeah, when the first Bradley rolls in, and then the IED goes off, and the Bradley takes off, and then that's when they're first that's when they get in the like shit scenario, right? And that's when Elliot gets wounded, and I forgot Joseph Quinn's character's name. That's another thing.
Yeah, they don't really say their
like names.
Yeah,
they do say like what's his name, Captain Eric. Is the Will Poulter.
That's his name, Will Poulter.
Yeah. And then Ray's obviously Ray Mendoza. And then Elliot. And then some of the other dudes, I don't really recall them saying their names. Or if they did, I didn't catch it. I've seen it twice now.
They probably did, but the whole thing is so chaotic that they're not really focused on like saying each other's names. They're more focused on like talking to one another in a way to like get some semblance of order while they're dealing with two officially wounded, and then the others are dealing with being concussed.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was saying earlier, is kind of like showing the side effects of a situation like that. That's not like usually shown of like something like that, like an IED blast. Obviously, if you're within the range, there's the like shock wave and stuff, and that's like cause like concussions and stuff. That's not what people tend to think of necessarily when it's like, oh, IED. You think, oh yeah, explosion. That's how it's like. There's other aspects to being like wounded or like fucked up in a firefight or something like that, or even in any scenario that isn't just like straight taking a bullet or shrapnel or something like that. There is like the internal stuff like your brain gets rattled or like your ribs get crushed or something like that. There's that, and they show very well, like with Will Poulter specifically.
I was gonna talk. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't focus on anything, and he has to make decisions because he is the officer, and it really harkens down and shows how he's like trying to stay focused and like lock it in, but like really can't. Like he like mentally cannot do it because it's not due to anything that he's like lacking. It's he literally got blown the fuck up, you know, and that's a whole thing.
Well, yeah, because he got blown up. One of their guys who's severely wounded, he's passed out. The other guy is screaming in pain.
Yeah, and then he says earlier too that the first when they set off the claymores on the front, that rattled him the first time, and then the second time was the IED. So he's all kind of like messed up, like the part where he's calling for the extraction, and they're for the other team to come link up with him, and they're like, "Where are you?" And he's trying to pick out any like little. He's like trying to like think of how to do it, and he just says, "Look for the blood in the smoke," because he can't like think of the like grid coordinates or like the actual like procedures.
That line goes hard as fuck.
Yeah,
Dude, just
the procedures of calling in something like that. He's fucked up. He even says he's like, I'm fucked up.
When the second team comes in and the leader of the second team.
And
he just straight up tells me, he's like, you need to take lead on this. I can't.
Which causes a reorg, which is, that's, and I think that's another thing that's cool, not cool to show, but you get
it's presented well in the movie.
Presented well is that, leadership like that, like a good leader realizing that if he has to make decisions, things are going to get even worse.
Yeah.
And even though like a reorganization completely changes that sort of scenario, and the next in line has to take over and stuff like that, it's a breakdown of the structure and rebuild of the structure, and the fucking try to snap there for a second in the snap, right? But making that call, I think, is as important as like not trying to be like a fucking hero and stuff.
Yeah, I respected his character more, and so did the other. Was he also an officer that he was talking to?
I just know he was the other team lead. I didn't know if he was
another officer, or if he was just another.
Yeah,
ranking.
They never clearly like say ranks, and a lot they don't wear. And other than the Marines in the movie, I don't recall them like wearing any rank either.
Yeah,
and so I was just kind of.
They may not have been too because
like,
of what they were doing.
Dialogue. I don't recall. The only reason why is like they obviously Will Poulter's in like the whole movie. When they break off from because the movie has a huge fucking cast.
Oh, it's a gigantic cast. And for such a like small scope movie, the cast is big.
But they break off at one point, and you don't see a lot of the other dudes until like the last like 15, 20 minutes.
It's like the last 20 minutes of the movie. They come in, and by the time they come in, you're just like, thank God.
Yeah. And they come in fucking hot. Dude.
They come in
I love the shot from the.
Yeah, what was that called? The overhead shot, the infrared shot from the planes.
Yeah, and they're watching them, and you just see them fucking fucking
hauling ass down
across the fucking town, dude.
Yeah,
and then when it's such a good way to present
the geography,
but also you like looking at it now from like a filmmaking perspective. Obviously, there's only so much budget because they built like a block.
To film
and so there was only so much they could probably film in and like not spend money on. So like until they like come in to a certain point, they couldn't like cut into like they couldn't show the whole run up. And so it was
brilliant the way they did that. It made it more tense.
Yeah, from that point, and when they cut in is probably when they started shooting on set, so they could do all this other stuff. I don't know if that's how they did it, but that's what it seems like.
It seems like that. Based on some of the stuff we looked up, like before and after the fact.
They're just like booking it, and you're just watching them fucking beeline it to the other dudes, and they gather another group out of a house, and they're just like fucking run into the other team, and they they like link up, and then it cuts in, and then it's just off the fucking wall gunfight. If it's just them just in a complete like street gunfight, just booking it.
Because at that point, you know, all the people that are, you know, shooting at them, they're all in all of the houses around them, but they can't really see
which
them.
kind of goes into like War Pigs, big time of them describing, and you even mentioned it's like fighting ghosts. You know, and they even say that in the line in War Pigs. That's I think that's a big aspect, is they like,
especially with the shot at the end of Warfare when they leave and they just all come out,
and it's like a lot more than you're like,
you thought there would be.
Like, Jesus,
there was about as many of them as there were of them,
and it was just you're like, I love that. That's how that ending shot with them all just coming out and gaggling in the street, and you're like, fuck, you know, it's like they had to like, if they didn't get out, they would have been fucked. They would have just been all killed because they would just been swarmed and and you like, and it really encapsulates it at the end there with that like final shot of them. It just holds on the street. Okay, this is spoiler. Sorry. If you just watch the movie,
just
if you're already here, we probably spoiled most of the movie for you, anyways. And so that like final, and then what you were saying is the show of force shots with the jet coming in.
There's a couple different, but there's two specific shots.
I think they do 3 show of forces.
They do 3.
Because they can't call it the either the gun run or the bomb run. They can't call it in because it'd be like right on top of them. But what they can call it is a show of force. So it's like close flybys and shit like that to be like, jerk off on Mother Earth.
It's basically, it really is literally just like trying to scare the enemy, essentially, because it's basically saying, we know where you are, and there's this war machine that will just annihilate you if you like really go for it.
And they also use it for like because it kicks
for
up
cover.
The dust.
It kicks up all the dirt and dust and everything.
It's not cover; it's concealment. But
I'm not military, okay?
I know. I think of the reason why I don't want to like get into war movies today is because it's like I don't fucking know everything. I was in for 6 years, and then I could already tell people be like, "Well, this, and this" in the comments. I'm like, I'm just trying to watch a movie. I didn't even want to mention that I was a veteran, but I think we mentioned it like kind of before and stuff like that, and that immediately puts people on their like high horse shit, and it's not something other than Patrick I mentioned and like to people, but that's why I'm like covering all my bases where I can, where it's just like somebody's like, oh, you said cover at what fucking 28 minutes in and 54 seconds he says cover, and it's dust, which isn't cover because it wouldn't get like cover bullets and concealment. And I'm just covering that. I'm covering my bases.
The point is, it made it significantly harder to see for a good amount of time.
Yes.
And that's important for these guys.
For eye shields.
Essentially. But we're going to transition into War Pigs here, but I don't think you and I can recommend this movie highly enough.
Go see fucking Warfare. Like, go see it. It's already, I couldn't,
It's on streaming and whatnot.
It's streaming. I think it's out on Apple. I would say see it. I watched it on a projector, which was fun.
That was,
But, serendipitously, we were watching the featurettes for this on YouTube, and one of the recommended videos was War Pigs, which is the documentary from Black Rifle Coffee about following... I'm going to fuck this one all up so you can get into fucking... I'm not too familiar with the LAV, the light assault vehicle, or what They even call it in the beginning the one that they slapped like a tank top on a fucking amphibious vehicle and took off the tracks and created an excellent war machine, I think was the quote. And they called them pigs, but it was the Marine... It was basically the equivalent of, I think they even said, like the equivalent of like Cav Scouts in the Army. And I forgot what the unit specific, it was like the light something or other. And it shows you how much I fucking know about the Marine Corps. But it follows like a platoon, I think, of those dudes going from the start of the second invasion of Fallujah in 2004 to the very end, like a month and a half in, and it just interviews every single one of the dudes and their stories, and just like as it's going, and they just kind of tell their stories, and it like just forms one cohesive start to finish. This is what happened.
Yeah, because it's not
how
like
they got there by the ship, and then how they rolled in from Kuwait.
Yeah, I think one of the best parts about why this, because I would also say this documentary is a 10 out of 10.
I say this is. I not thought about this, but I've been. Oh fuck! Look at that dude. Ah. He's still alive. Don't worry.
Ah.
You gotta don't crawl up his crotch. You got a crotch, buddy, dude. Okay,
he'll be fine. He's fine.
He's doing something. That was an interesting little detour.
Yeah.
War beetle.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't remember what the hell. I don't remember where you left off with that.
Oh, yeah. It's not just one of the best war documentaries I've seen. I think it's one of the best just documentaries hands down.
Yeah. They did a really great job.
Yeah. And I think this is another one I think just needs
it's
to
required
be seen.
Viewing.
I think so. Personally, I know there's a lot of. They don't shy away from it. Like, they have all the footage and pictures and photos from the team, the surviving members and stuff.
And the entire thing is
just that.
It's just there's no like traditional narration.
Yeah,
it's all narrated from the clips of the interviews they took from the guys that came back and are talking about it.
Yeah,
and there's some.
I came up with shit.
Yeah, I came up with hips, hard images per second.
HIPS. Hard images per second.
Yeah.
Every time they cut back into
anything, really.
Anything, them like going into like one of the photographs or like one of the videos.
Or like the
I love the photographs, the blurry ones from the I think it was the first week that they were in, that they had showed a lot of them like running around.
Yeah.
And it's just so
it's haunting.
Yeah, eerie. It reminded me a lot of, I think I even mentioned this, like the tapes in Sinister, where it just feels like you shouldn't be
looking at this.
Looking at it. And it just feels off because the shutter speed's off and how the movement looks and it just,
and what it's of too.
And it's just kind of haunting.
Yeah.
Some of those ones.
Especially paired with like the context that they're giving behind what is happening, like as it is happening and whatnot, because I think we may have said this, but this documentary goes from like the beginning of them like beginning their invasion to when they leave, and even post. Actually, there's like a getting ahead, but there's like some there's actually some like nice stuff at the end of like their brotherhood, like 20 years after the fact and whatnot. But it's kind of hard to express just how.
I mean, we teared up. We got we got
dude, some of the
so
guys,
many emotions.
Some of the stories these guys, it's even more impactful because like some of the stories these guys are talking about, there's photos and video of it as it was happening. Yeah. Not all of it, but like a lot of it. And just them remembering it and like the way they are talking about it is so like heartbreaking and like horrible. And just the environment. I mean, a big thing that they were, there's a moth inside the light, folks.
And it just looks like a giant ass moth from our perspective.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of funny.
Yeah. But it's that's how moth was born, bro. Just
comes and eats me.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean, there were multiple moments, especially near the end, but there's multiple moments because they talk about every.
Well, one of the ones what I was going to say is one of the ones was like the dude was talking about trying to save, at one point, trying to save his buddy.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was just like, I was covered in blood, or there's a photo of me covered in his blood or something like that, and it cuts into the photo. And
Oh my God. It's a hard documentary to watch, but it's so important.
Yeah. If you can
sit through it, it's worth it.
Definitely.
It's especially, it's interesting, like, this unintentional, I keep calling it a double feature, but like watching these two so in a way it's kind of like Warfare in a way is like a dramatized documentary because of the fact that it is about these real guys and it's based only on their memory of what happened and whatnot. And in WARPIGS, it is also that where you're listening to these guys like from their memory, like recount everything, but you're seeing the actual real stuff
as it's happening too.
And having that experience like back to back is something I'll never forget for the rest of my life, honestly, because it puts into it so vividly puts into perspective what was happening over there during this specific like 2 year, like Warfare is 2004 and WARPIGS is 2006, right?
Yeah.
So this like 2 year-ish period of being overseas and whatnot and what they were having to deal with and how from like top to bottom in regards to like the hierarchy ranking structure, like what was the guy, the older bald guy that was hard as that guy was hard as fuck.
That was the commander.
Yeah, the commander.
I don't ask me to remember any of these names.
Yeah, but him, that's what
I remember. Sadly, not sadly, but obviously the point is to remember these guys. I remember Fish, and I remember the fire base that they named him McKelly. Mogwai, yeah.
That story was...
Yeah. I remember Fish.
Yeah.
And those two I remember in that document just because...
Is Fish... I remember the one that the last guy they lost on.
I think that was Fish,
That one... That one was interesting. That's the one I was actually thinking of. I couldn't remember the name. But the commander, they're all talking about... So the last day they were there on December... It was New Year's Eve of 2006.
Yeah.
And the commander in the interviews and all the other surviving members, they're talking about losing this guy.
Specifically, I was surprised how... It's going to sound fucked up, but... The officers really seem like they fucking care about their dudes in this.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get that. You don't get that everywhere.
Yeah,
obviously. I think even like the one dude's story kind of
alluded.
Yeah, no, this one dude's story alludes to
I know what you're talking about. Oh my God.
Kind of how top brass leadership
that shit
can
pissed
be
me
kind
off
of fucking very not caring, and not kind of in their own world.
If you watch it, you'll know what we're talking about.
It involves a first sergeant, trying to call out a guy from not having his headgear after he was like just in a firefight and shit like that. But
that was so dumb.
And I mean, so you don't get that a lot, and you can really tell that these. I think they had the XO. The commander, and then a lieutenant, like one of the team leads or something. And you could really tell these fucking officers cared about their dudes and were like as much like warriors as the other dudes. And you don't really get that a whole lot, to be honest. You do, I mean, again, at that time, most likely, but even again, at that time, there's different...
There's a trend.
But... Shout out to all the officers out there. Be better.
Got him.
I wonder if you can tell if I was enlisted or not.
But yeah, it's just it's kind of hard to state how. In particular, you got it with Warfare, but with WARPIGS, because it's a documentary and you're seeing the real guys who are living and the ones that sadly passed. Because they show photos of the guys that passed and whatnot, like when they were there.
I mean, they talk about the deaths in detail.
Oh, in detail.
Like of the guys
like
they lost,
like what
and then
happened.
how much they cared about those dudes.
Even,
and,
you know,
like they go back and talk. Speaking of like the complete opposites of Warfare, not giving any backstory to any of the
This
characters.
is nothing but that almost.
Yeah, it's all about the guys.
Yeah.
It's solely about the dudes mainly, and then going through the situation. Rather than the situation itself being that, like, Fallujah is not like the main purpose of this documentary.
No.
I guess it was the
It
battle
just so
of
happens. It just so
Fallujah.
happens to document what happened there
in Fallujah,
in the process
but
of going with
yeah.
these guys.
It's very much about the war pigs. You know,
Oh yeah,
that's what their platoon or their battalion, something was called the war pigs, and I think it was the platoon, but I could be wrong on that. I'd have to rewatch it.
yeah,
But it's I mean, the title clear cuts it that it's about these guys
yeah,
and their relationship with each other and their feelings and their thoughts on as they were going through the city from start to finish.
yeah. I don't know why this stuck with me, but this is rounded down slightly, but they gave a Fallujah at the time. I don't know what it's like now. It's probably the same, but it was 5 kilometers by 3 kilometers. And if Warfare is, which it is, Warfare is about very similar things happening in a house. War Pigs is about very similar things happening in a town. Mm-hmm. And
it's like a full city.
yeah, like a city. And from like, there was some really like, this is actually, it was funny because I was saying this before the guy in the documentary said this. We said it a little bit ago about how I kept being like, it's like they're fighting ghosts. And the guy said that and you turned to me and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But you really got that vibe from like the photos and everything. When they,
and even videos.
In the
they're just
videos
getting,
and everything.
Like, popped out and popped at and just like
cause
running around.
Yeah,
and
because
they don't know where they're getting hit from.
Yeah, because they were saying, one of the guys was saying, like, all of us. So they said it was like, in particular, when they first were arriving, when they actually finally got into the city, it was so like dead quiet. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you would see a guy in like a black t-shirt and like jogger pants with like a machine gun just pop out in the middle of the street, or not a machine gun. They said an RPG, and they would shoot it at you, and then they would be gone.
Then they'd just be gone.
And that would just and that was the entire time you're there.
Yeah. And so they had to like adapt to fighting that type of
like how
enemy.
they had to do top down.
Yeah.
They had to infiltrate, or whatever the word is.
That's what stuck with me is they were always just like, we like basically rated the houses top down.
Yeah.
Rather than, because it was like they could feel like they could escape.
Yeah, so that they could get them.
Yeah,
frankly.
and they wouldn't fight harder back if you were going, bottom up.
Then because these guys were there for a month, the people they were fighting realized that what they were doing as like their tactic. So they started using some they described like some tunneling system, because they would go in and clear like a house and they would move on, and then all of a sudden they're back in the exact same house.
Yeah,
and there was a pattern of that. So they had to burn first of all they had to grenade them before they would go down into like the lower structure. And then once they were like, okay, there's no one in here, then they would have to burn the place so that they couldn't come back in.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they couldn't come back in.
Total warfare.
Yeah. And it was just that environment. Oh, the dog with the hand.
Oh,
that was so haunting.
One of the dudes talks about, and this might be a lot for somebody, but
warning, this is not
this whole
good.
episode will probably have some sort of warning before the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, because
But he talks about he went to get chow and he couldn't stop smelling like bad shit, and he looked over and he saw a dog with a hand chewing on a hand. And when he looked closer, he saw that it had a wedding ring. Mm-hmm. And then he just talks about it. He's like, he realizes, like, if you're not on your shit out here, you're just dog food.
Yeah.
And how that was like, damn,
Yeah, that really that was one of the lines that really stuck with me, where it was like
There's a lot of lines.
there's a lot,
but some fucking wild, like hard ass shit.
Oh, the commander, the football metaphor the commander
man.
talked about.
Yeah, the football thing.
Yeah.
He goes like along the lines. He's just like, he's talking about the camaraderie of the group and stuff, and he's like, I like to equate it to a football team. He's like, actually, I fucking hate that. He's like, because football players get to go home at the end of the day because it's a game. He's like, to us, this isn't a fucking game. And you're just like,
and when in particular where in the documentary that happens, that line hits so hard
because
of like
hips.
dude, hips
because it goes with lines too.
Yeah,
hips translates to lines as well. Hills, hard images per second.
Yeah.
Hilps.
Hard line. Yeah,
hard
hilps,
lines per second.
HLP. Yeah, hard line.
Hilps.
Hilps.
There's hips and there's hilps.
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 But yeah, like it was really honestly like it. I thought it was great that they ended the documentary with the retirement of the commander.
Yeah,
and all the surviving members they hadn't really seen each other, or at least they were saying that, since they like left.
Yeah.
Like Fallujah, which was 20 years ago. And this guy 20 years later is retiring, and they thankfully they got footage of like modern day footage of that happening. And that was so like
it ends
after going through all that shit. It was so nice to see that for them, honestly, because
link up after all that time, and as they described it, it's like not even a day had passed.
It's one of the best documentaries ever made.
Yeah,
and it's one of those that will definitely stick with you in a positive and a negative sense, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because it's depicting some of like the realest shit I've ever seen. And doing it so, I say it's not matter of fact, but it's doing it in such a like just telling you what happened kind of way. It's not like it's not necessarily like trying to like force you to feel a certain way, if you know what I mean, about what happened. It's just you're just listening to them.
What happens, and how you feel about it is how you feel about it. To be honest, I mean, you can walk away from this documentary very angry about a lot of stuff, and I would totally understand.
And that's valid, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's very valid. But I guess the main point is.
But that's not the point of why it was all made.
The valor of these dudes. Yeah. And again, it's the same quote.
It's the same thing from Warfare.
It's like there's a lot of valor. There's not a lot of glory.
Yeah.
These dudes were warriors, and sometimes shit just happens, and people just die, and you can tell that they meant a lot to each other, and it's made out of. It's another one that I think they described Warfare as a love story.
And that Elliot, the guy, Elliot described it. Well, they both were actually, but Elliot said it first.
Yeah, the real guys, Elliot and Ray. Described it as a love story, and I feel that towards the documentary too.
Oh,
it's
definitely.
a love story for the guys, the like amongst the dudes that were there. It's really a love letter to them, and then the people that they lost, rather than the actual battle itself.
Yeah, definitely. There's no better. They literally, you couldn't put it any better than that, honestly. Yeah. It's just, that is what it is. Yeah. Really.
And while I have you here really quick, I do have a war movie recommendation. It's not a perfect war movie because it was made independently in 90-something.
Oh, I know, yeah. Mm-hmm. 89?
89, yeah. And it predates predates Blair Witch Project because it's a found footage, quote-unquote, movie. And it's called 84 Charlie Mopic. And that was the title of, which is a motion picture specialist or something. Yeah. I think that's what that was the MOS title for combat camera back in the day during Vietnam, and it follows a 84 Charlie dude, and through his lens, following a long range patrol LRRP or LRRP or LLRP. I forgot what those dudes were called again. My mind's working at half speed right now, so
you're good. I need to watch that with you because you were wanting to show that to me.
Yeah, and it just from the community that I grew up in, the military of ComCam people, I think it's a very important movie for what we're known as 25 Victors. Because it was very low budget and only has like a cast of like 6 people, and then it's like the same thing where they probably didn't have money to pay the extras, so they're just kind of getting shot from nothing from the jungle, and it's like fighting goes, which falls in line with Vietnam. But a lot of people don't. So, yeah. It's a very under the radar movie, and it's much like Warfare, where it feels more like a horror movie than an actual war movie.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you said something and I don't want to forget it because I think it's important. Before you had me watch this Warfare I'm talking about, you said that like Warfare was this generation's Platoon.
Yeah.
And after I've seen Platoon with you, ironically, and I've seen this movie, and that's such an accurate statement.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And so this is mainly just a recommendation. Is like if you want some new and different war movie, or if you're doing something, 84 Charlie Mopic is a movie that I watched, I think somewhere in the middle. My dad recommended it to me because he watches all war movies.
Yeah, he does. Yes, he does.
Yeah. And that resonated with me big time. And then one more war movie recommendation is a World War I movie. It's called The Lost Battalion. Terrific movie. And another movie about a lot of valor from a group of guys that fought their way out of a really bad situation. And those are really the two that I have off the top of my dome that I would be like, if you're looking for something different or new or probably, and don't want to watch the more modern, like, war movies constantly, those are two that I would recommend that are fucking fantastic,
Something I just realized that we didn't even talk about, which actually goes to show specifically with Warfare, with what the movie's about and who was involved in making it and whatnot, was it overshadows like even this guy, because we love this guy, but it's co-directed by Alex Garland, who we love. He directed top 5
movies is Ex Machina.
Yeah, he directed Ex Machina, Civil War.
Yeah.
What's the one with Annihilation?
And then
Dredd. Judge Dredd?
He wrote Dredd.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He wrote Dredd.
He wrote Men. Eric directed Men.
Yeah, and
he didn't direct Dredd though.
Yeah, right. Well, there's people have.
He almost kind of shadow directed it in a way.
Yeah, I think he shadow directed it, or at least that's the like kind of rumor behind why it was so fucking good. Why Dredd was so good is because Alex Garland had way more involvement in it than like initially led on.
Yeah, but yeah, he
watched Dredd. By the way,
watch Dredd.
Completely side tangent. Watch fucking Dredd. Yeah. That movie deserved a sequel, and it's watch Dredd.
Yeah,
the movie's fucking rad.
But yeah, Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. And the people, I forget who directed the documentary and whatnot, but everybody.
It was just like I didn't see the names.
I forgot.
Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah, that's on their YouTube channel. The documentary came out like 6 months ago, I think, or something like that. Yeah. The
Espresso with Cream directed the movie.
Yeah. But everybody that was involved in the making of both of these movies, and include that we talked about for the majority of this episode, did. And absolutely...
It probably sound crisp as fuck on the mic.
Probably, yeah. I'll be watching back and just be like, ooh.
Ooh, let's turn that shit up.
Yeah.
What DBs are that at? Geek Bar.
Geek Bar.
Sponsor us, please.
Yeah, for real. But everybody did a more than phenomenal job. They really honored everyone that was involved in what happened in real life in a way that makes this. That's why I said I feel like both of these, and I put War Pigs and Warfare up there with like Saving Private Ryan and whatnot in regards to like it isn't just a movie anymore. It's an important piece of art.
Yeah.
That needs to be seen by people because you don't get this presented in this way very often. In fact, more often than not, you get what you talked about earlier where there's kind of like a movieism about it, like a traditional war movie. These are not traditional war. The documentary and the movie, they're not traditional, and that's what makes them fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's why I really could not highly recommend them enough for y'all to go see.
Definitely. I'm interested to see what else comes out this year in terms of what could be Best Picture contender.
Yeah, because for Warfare and Sinners, those two are like neck and neck.
I think Warfare and Sinners are the two movies this year so far that deserve the most recognition for that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I was gonna say what's so funny. Oh man, I didn't even think about this because Sinners is revolved all around music.
And there's no
Warfare. They don't use any score or any music except the very beginning for the call on AC.
that awesome
and
scene.
at the very end at the credits. Other than that, it is just
we didn't even
the
talk
sound.
about the sound. We didn't even talk about the sound itself. The sound design is so good in Warfare.
Insane.
It's so good.
PTSD simulator.
Dude, for real. It's
just wants to. Alex Garland just wants. I think he has a secret evil mission.
Yeah, he has.
Of just triggering everybody.
Yeah.
Or making people go deaf.
Exactly. Or he's Ray Mendoza. Who knows?
Yeah, because I think Ray Mendoza was the military advisor on.
He was on Civil War. Yeah, and that movie also crazy.
I recommend Civil War. I like Civil War.
Yeah, I would too. I do as well. I mean,
not Civil War, but the movie.
Yeah, not the concept. The movie,
not the concept. Not
the
movie.
Just you and I. Not the concept. Well, we have about 2 minutes left, but I think we can go ahead and wrap this up, Sim. I think this was a really good discussion, honestly. And go see these movies. And
rent them, buy them, pirate them. I don't know. I don't think I can say that. I don't know.
We're recommending some weird decisions to these people.
This last half, we really fumbled the ball.
The last 3 minutes of this, it unfolds.
Yeah, FBI is really going to point to this video and be like, "This is it.
Yeah,
this is what started the revolution."
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm Sim.
I'm Patrick,
and we're Wizard Core.